Welcome to Retro Fanfic Retrospective, the podcast where we dredge up old fanfiction and expose it to the cold, harsh light of 2019. My name is Amato, and with me are...
Tori.
And Dom.
And CJ.
Yeah, we have the long-awaited return of one of our most valued members of this podcast, CJ. So thanks for coming back, CJ.
Back on popular demand? Yes, you're welcome.
Oh, okay, well, welcome back, I guess.
Yeah, I guess Dom is back too.
Dom is back, which I think is a thing to celebrate. Dom, tell us where you've been.
Yeah, where have you been?
I've been to England and France.
No.
Yeah. Flew into London, stayed there for 3 days, Eurostar over to Paris, there for about a week. Then took a road trip out to Brittany, hit Carnac, St. Malo, then a little bit of Normandy, then back to Paris, then back to London, where I saw Les Mis at the Queen's Theatre.
Whoa.
And then back to Seattle, then back to Portland.
Les Mis in French or English?
English. It was in London.
It was on You know, it's weird because, like, I'm very excited to hear all of this, but Amato told me you were returning to your home planet to refuel and gain supplies.
I can't return it. It's been destroyed centuries ago.
Pieces of it are in England and France, however, so not lying.
Not
right?
anymore, but yeah.
Speaking of which, the trip was clearly a success because only one extremely important historical monument burned down while you were present.
Yeah, it's still kind of a bummer, thanks.
Yeah.
You really were
Sorry.
on vacation. I mean,
Yeah.
couldn't you have stepped it up a bit? Just one?
So I was there the night Notre Dame Cathedral caught on fire.
Yeah, it's all anyone was talking about in school that day. Or the next day, too.
Really?
Oh, yeah, people were following it. That was... What school was I even subbing at that time? I don't remember.
It's interesting because I've heard a lot of takes on this, and one is that it's a significant thing, but there's so much attention paid to it, as opposed to, like, the thousands of, religious monuments that have been bombed in various other non-Christian countries, specifically by people of the U.S. So that's kind of a take I've heard on that. Not to diminish the significance of this, but it was an accidental fire. And I'm told that they're doing restoration, as we speak.
They were doing restoration when the fire started.
Exactly,
yes. Yeah, 3 days later, there was already a retrospective documentary on TV about it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little trumped up. I mean, it's obviously, yes, historical monuments are very important, but...
Well, are the gargoyles okay? Is the question.
God, I hope so.
The stained glass windows and all the other architectural fixtures are fine, so I assume so.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the wooden roof, really,
Yeah.
that went up. It's a beautiful cathedral. I'm glad I got to see it
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, it is quite beautiful. Did you get to see it before it was on fire, Dom?
No. That first day, I just wanted to walk around taking in the site of Paris, so I saw it from the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then saw it from the top of the Montparnasse office tower.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the more important parts about your trip. You said you bought some comics.
Yeah. I bought some. I bought a few bande dessinées, or as I think they're called in French.
Albums, we say.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've got this one, which I actually got for free in download, but it was so pretty I wanted a physical copy.
Oh, yeah, I think you shared that with me before.
And at that time, at a local supermarket, they had an Asterix 60th anniversary thing.
Nice.
Which I tried to buy, and the cashier was very urgently trying to tell me something. I couldn't figure out what, but be careful when you open that because there's loose stickers in there.
Oh.
Turns out it's a sticker album.
It's a sticker album.
Yeah, and you get more packs of stickers at the store.
Huh.
That's so cool.
Wait. So, you don't have all the stickers that would go in this book?
No, you have to get them from the store.
You have to get them from the store. Crazy.
My last day in Paris, they had one of those stores at the basement of the train station we were at Gare du Nord.
Hmm.
And I tried to, with my weak grasp of French, I tried to ask for some from the cashier. When they finally realized what I was talking about, they just handed me a handful. I tried to pay for them, they just waved me off. So oh, okay, cool.
Well, that's quite nice.
And with my last 15 euro, I bought this at the train station.
Ooh, some Lucky Luke. In Paris?
A cowboy in Paris, yeah.
Oh, yes. So this first one that you passed around, Dom, is, you did share this with me before, via the internet, I believe. This, I think, has more colors than the one that I saw.
Yeah.
It's very pretty. The art is very, I don't know, I want to say, like, contemporary, like, very, like, the new She-Ra kind of, or almost Steven Universe
kind of art, almost?
Webcomic-y, yeah. But it's very, very pretty. How do you pronounce the title of that?
Les fleurs des grands
Frère.
frères, yeah. Older brother's flowers.
Yeah, I like how they did the colors and that. They look like they're digital colors, but they have a very, like, watercolor aspect.
It's fun because it spends an entire year in this kid's life and they use the different color palettes for the different seasons.
Yeah, that one's quite good. Oh, yeah, and I'm loving...
Lucky Luke, the cowboy in Paris.
A very classic art style.
Nothing
Love
like
the bright colors.
Yeah.
The primary colors, very red, blue, and yellow.
There's nothing like a Old West cowboy comic via Belgium. I think it was.
That's great. And it ends with the Statue of Liberty. What do you know?
Yeah.
It seems like good choices. I've enjoyed the Lucky Luke that I've read
So
in English.
with my language learning tendencies, is I find something I like, which is almost exclusively comics and animation of that language, and then kind of dive into that scene.
It's a good way to practice.
My next target is Spanish, which I'm kind of pivoting from French. I have a couple of learned Spanish books in French that I'm working through.
That's a good way to do it.
Interesting. I'm curious to know how that goes because the transition from Spanish to French is one of the hardest things in my life. Like, it's put me off of French forever.
It's a bit easier going from French to Spanish, I think.
I'm sure it is.
It's definitely easier than going from English to French or English to Spanish.
Just the spelling alone, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Spanish is very intuitive. The spelling and the pronunciation to me.
One of the few
French
languages
is
that...
very decorative.
Yes. And it's funny because Spanish and French are both Romance languages. So you'd think transitioning from, like, Germanic language like English would be equal between the Romance languages, but it very much is not.
Now,
So that's been our 8 minutes of travel talk.
All right.
right, and speaking of England, our fanfic today is about some good Englishmen, by which I mean hobbitsmans. And our fanfic is The Jewel of Brandy Hall by Fernwithy.
Our dear friend.
Our
Yeah.
first ever returning author.
It
Fernwithy.
is. Yeah. We did Father's Heart by Fernwithy some time ago. CJ, that was your first episode with us.
That's right.
And second
There's
and third.
4, yeah.
Yep. We really worked for that one, but
Yeah.
it was worth it.
Yeah.
I think that's evidence to me that Fernwithy is a worthwhile author to pursue.
Yeah, because we let a couple others fall by the wayside, but we made sure to pick this one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Dom, you tend to ask me why I chose a fanfic.
Yes.
And I'm running into this problem recently where I've scheduled ahead fanfics for a long time, at least tentatively. Like, I've got through episode 53 sketched out. Because I just kind of hammered out, like, oh, we can do, like, these short ones and this long one, and then these short ones and this long one. The result of which is I don't remember any of, like, why I chose any of these things. I know I was looking for something of reasonable length. I guess I was looking at Lord of the Rings fanfics, and something that at least seemed reasonably well regarded. And then I probably just saw that Fernwithy had written something and was like, oh yeah, let's read that. That sounds like it would be fun to have 2 points of reference on the same author.
I mean, we're always a little bit disappointed when you don't pull through, Amato, but as you've gone above and beyond how much programming you should do on a free podcast like this, so we're still grateful. How much producing you've been doing.
That's right. So much producing. I've got a Google Doc with a list of fanfics in it. I guess it's technically a Google Sheet.
Well, I mean, if you're getting producer credits, I feel like maybe we should be paying you a little bit more. I don't know.
No, you can pay me, sure. No
Yeah.
complaints.
We're all kind of producers, though.
Just
so
add a couple zeros on the end.
Of the 0. Perfect.
yeah.
Now, so this fanfic was published May 15th, 2000, updated February 25th, 2001.
Hey, that's one of my birthdays.
Now, one of those is your
Whatever your birthday.
Well, my birthday in 2000. Yeah.
Okay. I see.
That's such an interesting way to phrase
stories
that.
behind yourself. All right.
My planet has a complicated culture.
Now, that means kind of like the last Lord of the Rings fanfic we read, which was, of course, They Say of the Elves, that it was coming out when the movies were still just kind of coming out. Like, Fellowship would have been out.
Quite, yes.
But it wasn't yet, like, the roaring pitch, I feel like, of fandom. Or even if it kind of was for Fellowship, this fanfic is really, really not Fellowship-based in the slightest.
This fanfic is very books-based.
Right.
Very not movies to me.
So Fernwithy must have been involved in what the other author, was that Brancher? Yeah, Brancher. What Brancher referred to as like the small sedate fandom of Lord of the Rings.
Just a reference to Tom Bombadil tells me that it wasn't related to the films at all, so...
But yeah, I can see how this might have been put out with the spark of interest that was created by the release of the films. Everybody kind of went back to Lord of the Rings and thought, oh yeah, those books, those are great. We should check that out again. And I do think, like, kind of as you pointed to, Amado, there's this early, like, resurgence of interest in the books because of the release of the movies. But as the movies came out, the movies kind of took over the cultural conception.
Now, I didn't know anything about the premise of this fanfic until we started reading it. I knew that it was post-series and set in Hobbiton and, like, about some, like, new Hobbit character. Hobbit. But that's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And in the intro, Fernwithy says, this story comes out of a series of conversations at... And then for some reason there's just a period. There's
and then an
formatting
apostrophe.
Issue. I don't know. In which Frodo's fate was debated. Was he right or wrong to seek sanctuary in Eresia? The outcome of the discussion was a site called the Rescue Frodo SWAT Team, moderated by Prembone, which collects stories and poetry dedicated to bringing Frodo back to Middle-earth. And so that's a weird origin for the story.
Let the man rest.
I mean,
give him a break.
Seriously, like, there's a reason he sailed off in those ships, damn.
I feel like even in this story there's a strong argument to be made about that.
Yes.
Much to Fernwithy's credit. Good old Fernwithy.
So,
I know.
Tolkien's, like, worldview, I forgot what there's a specific name for it, but it's the idea that everything is slowly getting worse.
Yeah.
The idea that things were better in the past, and that as time goes on, things will just get worse and worse and, like, less divine and such. So, with Lord of the Rings, everything is getting... The Valinor have left everything, and everything that was good or holy is kind of retreating back to the west. So the idea of something coming back from the west to the east isn't really fitting with the Tolkien philosophy.
Tolkien wouldn't have done it, no.
No.
That's why we have Fernwithy.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it's kind of, you know, I wish I could remember, exactly what that phrasing was, but the modern, like, interpretation is, like, cosmic pessimism of the idea of, like, humanity is kind of dying off in its slow way because it was never meant to exist as a species.
That God was perfect and everything after that was a mistake, kind of.
Yeah.
Why don't we dive into the content, at least in, the broad strokes here?
So, like, that means that this fanfic is directly at odds with the philosophy that Tolkien set out, kind of blazing their own path, their own territory.
Yeah.
But it's addressed.
Definitely.
Yeah. One of the nice things is, like you were saying, CJ, like, there's a reason Frodo had to go to the West. It's not waved off in the fanfic at all. Like, it's just kind of, but you're right, Dom, it's definitely kind of a competing philosophy. Like, it's not something Tolkien probably would have approved of conceptually.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of points to discuss in that, but let's try to like dig into what's actually happening.
Yeah, that's just my thought process going into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's good to remember.
Our story starts following a kid named Galadriel Baggins.
Of course.
I really like this opening line. No one was really surprised when Galadriel Baggins did odd things. First paragraph, one sentence.
It's strong.
Yeah, it is a strong opening.
It is.
Galadriel, who everyone calls Gala, is being raised by Mary in Brandy Hall. And Mary has kind of become the new patriarch type person. I guess, the Brandy Bucks, It seems like someone would have been more senior than Merry, but maybe he just like gets some extra props.
He was really tall. So.
Oh, and he was pivotal in saving the Shire. That's true too.
Yeah, Merry and Pippin were like super hot.
Tall.
Yeah,
are the hobbits?
It mattered.
Yeah.
Are the hobbits like the aliens in Invader Zim?
They're the tall ones.
Oh my god.
It's funny though, like Pippin doesn't make quite as much of an appearance as Merry does, right?
Well, Pippin's also.
Am I right about that?
No, he doesn't as much in this story.
Yeah.
Now, for a moment, I was kind of rolling my eyes about naming their kid Galadriel, but it's quite canon apparently that like Merry names his kid. What is it? It's
Eowyn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Theoden.
But then there's also an Eowyn.
There's also an Eowyn.
And Sam has a bunch of kids that are named after people we know.
But there's a point about this. They literally mention, like, I don't remember if it was an author's note or like an actual note on the characters spoke, but that there weren't that many like women to name Hobbit women to name the characters after, so they named the characters after like these specific women. I feel like that must have been an author's note, but they made that a point.
By the way, my favorite thing about the Hobbit kid names in this is the like offhand comment that like it's Merry's son, right? Theoden. Mm-hmm. That like before the day was passed after he was born, everyone was calling him Dengo. Yeah. And I was like, of course they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had to hobbitize it.
Right.
They mentioned offhand that every kid Hobbit eventually gets a nickname within like a few days of being born.
Right. So no one's calling this kid Galadriel. She's Gala.
I mean, even the Frodo is just called Fro.
Right.
Yes, because there's another Frodo. That's Gala's younger brother.
No, one of Sam's kids.
Oh, one of Sam's kids. That's right.
Of course.
Right. There's a lot of hobbits and a lot of Hobbit kids in this.
Yeah, it's called Frodo. But I do like that Galadriel's nickname is Gala because it sounds like an apple, which just seems really like Hobbity, right?
Little apple going to a dance.
Yep.
So the sorts of odd behavior that Gala does include being really bookish for a Hobbit and being like an adventurous kid, which is not particularly scandalous.
And being a tomboy. Yeah.
And being a tomboy.
Yeah. So she's basically like Belle in Beauty and the Beast.
Pretty much.
She's not unlike Belle in Beauty and the Beast, is she?
Now that you mention it.
I mean, great character, so not bad, right? Like
she's all singing "There Must Be More Than This Provincial Town."
Yes,
and
exactly.
She is trying to escape on a pony.
Well, she's also super interested in elves.
She is.
And, the elves who still occasionally pass through heading to the west. And one of the reasons she's interested in this is that it comes out pretty soon to us. She's Frodo's daughter. Mm-hmm. And Frodo went into the west. Mm-hmm. Now, should we just give the backstory here? Because we don't need to reveal it the way they do.
It's slowly revealed over the story, but yeah.
We may as well just explain what the deal is.
Because I was like, really though? Come on. But Fernwithy did a good job of kind of making it believable.
Going through the fic, a lot of characters kind of tiptoe around it.
Right. Well, because it's a little bit of a sensitive topic.
It's a bit of a scandal, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the deal is, there's this Hobbit woman who was also rather bookish and trying to set up a school and stuff. And she was blinded by Saruman in the Shire fight. Because it said she had been teaching herself to use a bow. And I think that was one of the party presents that Bilbo gave out to some of the kids, right? Like little bows or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like that ties together. But, Saruman, blinded her personally with a spell. And after sorry, what's her name?
Lily.
Lily Witherpool. After all that, she gets taken over to Rivendell to be healed by...
to Tom Bombadil.
Oh, to Tom Bombadil? They have to go to Tom Bombadil for that?
Mm-hmm. He's a merry fellow.
Well,
and his coat is yellow or something.
Bright blue his jacket is, and his coat is yellow.
It says...
Wait, what?
Flip it, reverse it. One of them's blue, one of them's yellow.
He wears colors, it's fine.
Into the old forest and get Gandalf to fix her poor eyes after Sharky blinded her.
Well,
that's what it says.
But
later on, they say Gandalf and Frodo took her to Tom Bombadil together.
Yes. You're right about that.
Yeah, you're quoting the Hobbit gossip, which is not entirely clear on the details. And so... It's just that, she needed to be taken out into the wilderness, to weird, unhobbity places. Mm-hmm. And someone needed to go with her because she was blind. And apparently it would be more of a scandal for, some a company not related to her Hobbit man to go with her than it would be for someone to just marry her. And so Frodo just married her.
It was something that Lily's guardian, Paladin took, I think it was.
Yeah.
Insisted in order to keep Lily's reputation safe.
Wasn't Paladin Pippin's father? Yeah, I was going to say Peregrine because I don't know for some reason. Paladin Peregrine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's his Peregrine is Pippin's full name.
And her reputation was important because she wanted to start a school.
Yeah.
And like that happens, and they come back to the Shire, and they're living apart, and like they're kind of friendly, and she helps him put together the Red Book. And there's a comment about how like she didn't want to be written in the Red Book, and so that explains why in the Lord of the Rings she doesn't appear, because it's a document in Middle Earth, whatever.
But Lily supposedly did technical details like figure out what dates each event happened on by account and math.
Like interviewing the other hobbits, like who were involved.
And her reason for not wanting to be in the Red Book was like, well, if we're going to describe the battle that happened in Hobbiton or like in the Shire, well, we don't want to record every stub toe, do we? So I was like, cool.
That kind of comes up in a different way, in a fun way later on, I feel like. But anyway, so they get married, and they're kind of friendly, and, Frodo's on and off in a lot of pain, and on the, if you don't remember, like, the very end of The Lord of the Rings, on the anniversary of getting bitten by Shelob and the anniversary of getting stabbed by the Witch King on Weathertop, he gets into, like, real, like, bad, like, fever, but also slipping into, like, the spirit realm, like bad mojo sicknesses. And so he's already kind of been like half thinking of leaving Middle Earth, or like kind of subconsciously thinking that kind of thing. He's not like in the habit, he's not really in the market for a relationship.
Right.
Yeah,
but
and I have... oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, but they do end up sleeping together one time shortly before he leaves.
But I was wondering at this point if they'd mentioned like kind of the feelings in their relationship, or if that was more expounded on later on.
Oh, you talk about it now.
Yeah, I feel like it's worth mentioning that there's kind of a very like sweet thing between Frodo and Lily. Like his initial marriage of her was to save her because he obviously does care for her, and because he's a good person. Like, not to save her, that's the wrong way to put it. It's actually a terrible way to put it. To make her see again. Because he cares about her. But there's a very clear thing that their relationship is not really a sexual one. Like,
right.
It's
not even romantic.
No.
It's more of a friendship.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what romantic is, per se.
It involves some measure of limerence at some point in it.
I don't know. Anyway, my point is that their relationship is, like, you know, they're good friends. And he does the marriage thing for the reason that a lot of people do the marriage thing, which is out of a great, like, love for her, but not out of any, like, real sexual attraction or desire to, like, have children. And so that's what becomes, like, that's what is so sweet to me, to be honest, is that he loves her, that, like, he just loves her as a great friend, and he still wants to form this partnership. But I think he also knows that he's going to leave. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting that, that then they do end up having sex because they do end up having a child.
Yeah.
I don't know, did they explain why that happened? Like, that was unclear because it seemed like he had no real attraction to her.
It was just a bit of chemistry in the moment.
Yeah, I guess maybe, like, the tension and the combination of them caring for each other so much maybe built that moment to come to fruition. Mm-hmm. It does make sense. It's very pure and tender, I guess, in a certain way, how they view each other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, Fernwithy spoke so confidently about this relationship that there was a point early on reading it where I was like, is this just something from the appendices that, like, I didn't remember happened? It is not.
No.
But Frodo goes off to the west, and she ends up having a child and dying in childbirth, like happens when you are in a story that needs some amount of, drama tragedy involving dead parents. Yeah, and it also happens in real life, but
it was the only time they ever slept together.
don't have
She got
hospitals in
pregnant. Yeah, and then she died in childbirth. How much, like, tragedy. Like, that's, like, layers, right?
It's also supposed to reflect that Frodo was an orphan, that apparently Lily was an orphan. I guess, why not? And then she decides to leave her daughter in the care of Merry rather than Pippin, who's her first cousin, which is kind of a sticking point.
yeah, Pippin has a little bit of like a It seems to have hurt Pippin a little bit. But I think she thought that was a better place to grow up. That's where Frodo grew up, right, in Brandy Buck as an orphan. And anyway, long story short, long story long.
If you don't mind backtracking a little bit, I found the part that talks about Lily and Frodo.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Frodo had... they're together at like one of the local festivals or something. Frodo had found himself in the shadows on the edge of the festival, feeling unbearably alone. Then Lily had been there, and they had started talking. And at some point, Frodo had remembered that she was his wife, and she had never forgotten that he was her husband. He was angry at himself for letting it happen. And before he left her, he had apologized profusely, bidden her goodbye, not wanting to risk seeing her again. That's more or less how they explain it.
Yeah, I think that's the point. You know, just to briefly say, like, that was the thing is, like, it was so intensely his, like, sense of, like, understanding how much she wanted that from him that he was able to give it. I feel like that was, like, the tenderness of that moment.
This is why Gala is kind of especially interested in the elves and, like, the elves going to the Grey Havens. And she's, like, at one point in her youth, she kind of, like, falls after an elf who's passing by and, like, bugs him, and he kind of drags her back home. And then another time later on, like, when the fanfic kind of picks up, she sort of waits until she knows elves are traveling by and tails them. And I kind of appreciate that the elves don't notice her, because hobbits are supposed to be very good about moving around in the Shire area in the wilderness, you know, without people noticing them, right?
Not just Gala, but Gala's pony also.
That seemed a little bit less likely, but I guess...
It's a Rohan pony, all right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
They're professional.
It's like the best pony.
Bummer. Yeah.
Right, yeah, because, she has been to Rohan with Mary a couple of times, apparently.
And everybody else in Hobbiton doesn't believe any of the stories Gala has about it.
Right.
I know, which just kind of throw you through a loop, right? Like, you go off and have these adventures, and you come home, and it's like, I'll believe you. That didn't happen.
And she's met the king as well.
No way, France doesn't exist. What are you talking about?
Exactly. Wouldn't that, like, trip you up? Like, that's some, like, heavy gaslighting bullshit right there.
I could expect it from people. I don't care what people think.
Good way to be.
Yeah, but if that was the entire precedent of your whole life...
She's got Mary and Pippin and all the cool
I had a
people in
rough
the Shire,
childhood.
so it's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, but everybody else is telling her they're crazy, so...
She
Speaking
just reads
of-
a book then.
Yeah.
Speaking of people telling people things, I just like to comment that especially in the first part of this fanfic, I really appreciated how concerned it is with Hobbit gossip. Like we get a whole scene, and we'll get another one later of just like hobbits in the inn gossiping, and like, you know, whenever it's talking about things that like are happening around this family, there's usually some amount paid to like, oh, what other people have to say about it. You know,
That
like
opening song in Beauty and the Beast.
right. It really matters what old Farmer Maggot, you know, and his wife are saying about this escapade that Gala got
Farmer
into.
Maggot.
Farmer Maggot.
Farmer
Yeah.
Maggot.
Real character.
All I can say is that there's a series of... Was it Zangband or was it Tome? I must be thinking of Tome, Troubles of Middle-earth. It's an Angband variant. So an old roguelike. I was killed by Gripfang and William, Farmer Maggot's dogs, many, many times.
Oh my god.
They're deadly for low level.
Was that an ASCII roguelike?
Oh, yeah.
Did I play that? Is that why I knew that?
Yeah, that sounds so familiar.
It sounds like something you'd given me at some point.
That's why I remember Farmer Maggot all the time.
It honestly sounds so familiar.
Someone must remember
I
Farmer
kinda-
Maggot all the time.
His poor dogs, though. Who made them that way?
I appreciate that they mention a lot of hobbits, and I don't know if any of them are made up or not, so that if they were made up, then they fit in very well with the Hobbit naming scheme.
Right.
I feel like the farmer thing, like, wasn't there was the farmer that Merry and Pippin ran from in the
That's
early... Yeah. But it rings the same tone. Like...
Anyway, I just appreciate that. It felt very Hobbity flavorful.
Yes.
But the main action picks up with Gala actually managing to tail some elves to the Grey Havens. And as it happens, well, for one thing, Merry freaks out. Merry gathers up Pippin and Sam. They go after her.
Yeah, I mean, your kid just left.
Yeah. And she's very much Merry's kid. Like
Yeah.
He's been in charge of her since before he was married, I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
So, according to this.
And now, and she's supposed to be, at this point, 12 years old, which is weird because it seems like she's actually 12 years old as opposed to being like what the Hobbit 12-year-old would be. That's a little convoluted in this, I will admit.
Well,
but
that's just a matter of perception, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't... You know, she's an arbitrary, like, young, but not, like, you know, really young age. You know?
Yes, but they specify that the coming of age is 30,
Right.
and then they also specify that she is 12. So it's kind
Yeah.
of confusing because she doesn't act like 3-year-old or I don't know what, you know, whatever the equivalent would be, the 6-year-old she has.
If it's proportional, you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe
Words
hobbits are
maybe.
just teenagers for 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, it's quite possible. Anyway, I would say that she acts in between the ages of 9 and 12.
Now, they're able to trail her, they being Merry and Pippin and Sam.
Does Pippin go?
Yeah, Pippin goes, don't they? Doesn't...
I thought it was just
Isn't it
Mary
all
and
of them?
Sam.
Yeah, Pippin's actually tracking them because the soldiers of Gondor, the rangers,
Right.
trained him a little
Gotcha,
bit in
yeah,
tracking.
yeah,
Yeah.
And they catch up with her at the Grey Havens, and they're going to be like, "Oh, well, you're in real big trouble, young lady." But as it happens, when they're there, a ship is coming in from the west, and you know, like all the elves are gathering in a crowd, being like, "Well, the ship is coming in from the west at the
coming
exact same
back.
time." Right? That's not usually the way things work, I guess. But wait,
They mentioned
then-
it's never how it works.
do they just make a new ship for every trip then?
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. I was like,
Okay.
they just keep...
So the ship pulls in. Frodo steps out.
Yeah.
Now, Frodo, and you know, like everybody kind of freaks out, except that, you know, Sam, he's not freaking out about it or anything.
That's because he is connected,
Right.
I suppose.
Um,
Which is supposed to be the intimation.
He was also a ring bearer, so...
that's true, I
Yep.
guess, too, yeah.
Yeah.
So Frodo comes back in. He's got a message that's going to be passed on to, like, the ship, the guy in charge of Círdan, what's his name? Cirdan.
They talk politely until they send Gala out of the room.
Yeah.
Then they ask Frodo what the fuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And from that elf who Gala had like tried to follow before, he like going to the west into, you know, essentially heaven. He's like, hey, like a funny thing happened to me on the way to the west through the Grey Havens, where like this little hobbit girl was following me, and you know, her name was such and such and such and such.
It's a
Yeah.
terrible joke.
And that and that reaches Galadriel. And Galadriel decides to, and she's like, oh, I guess Frodo had a kid. And
And
she
we're
just-
talking about the Galadriel, not
Right.
Galadriel, Frodo's kid.
Right.
Anyway.
It reaches that Galadriel.
And in the meantime, when they have been in the West, Frodo has been restless. They were content
That's
at
right.
first, and they've been getting increasingly less and less content.
Yeah, it's basically like Nirvana, heaven, etc. You pass into the West and you're just like, I live here now. My past life is gone.
Right.
But something is pulling him back to his past life. And it seems like it is Gala.
And Galadriel decides to share the news with him. And so he decides to come back. Now, the first question out of everyone's mouths in this conversation, once it's in Gala out of the room and some of his friends, is like, so are you staying or not?
Yeah.
And this is especially, Mary's pretty aggressive about it. For reasons that are not, I feel like not directly stated, but extremely clear. Like in a good writing kind of way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he is Gala's father.
Yeah, as a
Yes.
parent, you want to know what trouble the birth parent's going to cause.
Exactly. And like he knows that she's like
Yes.
totally into her father. She's been reading the Red Book, like
Wearing his
and-
coat.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like it's one thing for Mary if Frodo's coming back to be a part of her life. It's another thing if he's just dipping in and then he's going to be like turning right back around again and like
It's
hurting Gala through that action.
Yeah.
And,
And it should be noted, as soon as he steps off the boat, she's in his arms immediately.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Like they
doesn't let
know
go.
each other immediately. Yeah.
And also to remember, she hasn't seen him like ever in her life. Really, she was quite young. Like a
Wait,
a
Gala?
He was
baby.
gone
No,
when
she-
she was born, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't there when she was born.
Yeah,
It was
he wasn't
news-
there when she was born.
It was news to him that
Right.
she existed.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't remember if she was like a baby or if, before that, but you're right. But she's had a fantasy of who her father would be, and it's been very much reinforced by all of these myths and legends surrounding her father, and she longs for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's this crazy thing that happens because I think this is what the writing here is so good at doing is like Merry and Frodo are like close friends. Like Merry, is bawling tears when Frodo leaves on those gray ships. But after 12 years of raising this girl as his daughter, that's where the loyalties have turned to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's almost an aggression towards Frodo, like, don't you hurt this girl that I care for.
Right.
And I think that's very respectable in a good parent, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
and it is Frodo's motives are questionable here. Like, how long he's gonna be here? Like, what's gonna happen? You know?
Yeah, it's
If he came over, he should come to stay, or he should just not come at all.
Correct.
Which is Mary's stance, and it's totally understandable.
And Frodo has not thought it through. Like, he really hasn't.
No.
He's saying, like, well, I'm going to stay through this first,
First two sicknesses.
the first two sicknesses, and then we'll see. And he's, like, not committing to anything. And,
He was
and
just like,
Mary's kind of upset with him about
Yeah.
it.
I kind of read it like Frodo wasn't sure whether they're going to survive it or not.
Yeah,
So,
that's another very plausible read, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So it's like I'm afraid of
But-
saying anything that's going to happen in the future because I don't know if I will even live through this.
he's basically like, I couldn't stay there. I was too uncomfortable. But if I can't stay here, like I can't make any promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just makes
And-
Frodo seem like such a dick in this moment,
well,
honestly.
Mary's not even the only one who's kind of angry at him. Like, Pippin has a moment also where Frodo's like, oh, yeah, and, Lily died from that, and it's all my fault, and, I should not have allowed this to happen. She should not have been in that situation. Like, Sam, it's nothing to do with you. It's all my fault. And Pippin's line is, yes, be at peace, Sam, Pippin said, a touch of anger in his voice. Frodo is the only one allowed to bear the blame for every turn of fate. We mere mortals simply have to accept that these things happen sometimes.
And that's such a purely honest snipe at Frodo that's like so rooted in the source material that it's so easy to be mad at Frodo in this.
So one of the other quotes is when they're first talking. Frodo sat back in his chair, looking around. I'm sorry, Merry. Perhaps I shouldn't have come. I didn't say you shouldn't have come, Frodo. I asked if you planned to stay.
Yeah.
Snaps.
good old Mary.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Mary leaves the room.
Yeah, Mary's a great character in this.
Yeah.
mean-
Pippin is too, but he's around less.
Yeah.
After
yeah.
this initial conversation, like, on the way back, they kind of drop Pippin back off at home. That's pretty much it for Pippin. And, Sam also goes home, and Sam's mayor of Hobbiton, by the way, which is canon. And he's got his own big family.
and they live in Bag End.
And they live in Bag
Which
End.
has been a sticking point for all the people in Hobbiton, because they're like, shouldn't that be Frodo's daughter's place? And he's like, well, it was left to me. I don't know.
So Merry and Gala, I'm saying Gala like the apple. Is that how everyone else was saying it?
Gala?
Gala for me, yeah.
Gala,
like the ball.
yeah.
Like
Gala. Galadriel. Gala. It should be Gala. Gala's not right.
I say Gala for the apple too, just
Gala.
to clarify from my perspective. So.
Merry and Gala and Frodo head back to Brandy Hall. Brandy Buck Hall? Brandy Hall. Brandy Hall. And, Frodo even gets, to stay in the same room that he had when he was growing up. And here we're kind of introduced to a subplot here in the middle, which is that Frodo is kind of emotionally detached from the world. Like, he goes in there and he's like, oh, I remember a lot of youth, stuff from my youth, but it's not hitting him emotionally.
It's described as just remembering a bunch of times and dates and not remembering themselves in the situation emotionally.
Yeah.
He just spent a bunch of time in heaven, and it's
Right.
kind of like when Gandalf came back as Gandalf the White, and he's like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I don't remember anything.
Or when Buffy came back after.
Yeah.
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 But I actually think this is pretty consistent with how Frodo was at the end of the books,
Mm-hmm.
because he felt like he had to pass away into the West because he couldn't feel the same connection with the Shire that he did and with his friends.
Yeah.
So I think his emotional state is pretty consistent coming back here.
Yeah. And similar, like he visits the little memorial, I guess, grave for Lily and that kind of thing. Now, he's also still kind of getting closer to Gala during this, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's anything super specific to say about that.
The first sickness strikes while he's there.
Oh, you're right. You're right. That is the big thing.
Yeah.
First sickness strikes.
Scares the shit out of Gala.
Right.
Can we
She-
just call her Apple? Sorry, just kidding.
I feel like that's a different Hobbit.
It probably is.
Yeah, first sickness strikes. I forget which one. It's the Shelob anniversary, I think, or something. Whatever.
Yeah, it's the less traumatizing one.
No,
The less traumatizing one.
He's been
It's all just degrees of traumatizing with Frodo.
It's the less phasing out of existence one. I think.
Right. Yeah.
he's been preparing for this, but I forget, has he warned Gala about this?
He warns her, but it's just like,
Yeah.
he's still in. He's totally out of it and probably like screaming and all that kind of thing.
They warn her
They
like
don't
he
really say.
warn a kid, like something
Yeah.
bad's going to happen, and Gala still doesn't understand what's
Right.
going on.
And he has a jewel that Arwen had.
Oh,
Is it just the
given
Evan
him.
Star that he has? Like
I
what?
guess.
What's he
They call it
carrying?
Nenya.
Nenya, yeah.
Wait, Nenya. That's one of the rings. He has one of the rings.
Yes.
He has the ring of, I don't know, adamant. Like, which one is it? Yeah, it's the ring of adamant. So that was the one that, he has Nenya with him? Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he has Nenya with him, and he has...
To help him feel less.
They say it doesn't have any power, but he keeps it just in case.
Wait, doesn't he have two things with him then?
Yes, I was about to say,
Right.
he has Nenya, and he has, it was something else he used to carry with him. Do y'all remember?
Green
That's good to
stone
know
or
because it was confusing for me.
I think that is just like Arwen's jewel. Like,
Yes, I thought so.
the
The
actual
Even Star?
Evan Star, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the ring is there for moral support because it was literally useless because the one ring was destroyed.
I think he
And-
brings Nenya back with him, and later in the fic, he gets sent the Even Star.
Is that right?
From
Arwen.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because they're supposed to meet up at a lake.
in the
The
summer.
King and Arwen, and
Oh,
they're
right,
supposed to go
right.
and meet up in the summer.
Because
Yeah.
the King's
Yes.
busy
And he was
teaming
gonna-
all over the place.
Right, and
Right.
he was going to give it back to Arwen at that time. I think.
Yeah, and of all people, of course, Arwen is not in the West. Like, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Well, she's mortal now, so
And it helps. That helps. It still has some measure of power for some reason. I don't know. It's, elf magic. Whatever. It helps
power
some.
of love. I said it. I'm not sorry.
Not even a little?
Maybe a little.
That's fine. I can live with that.
Okay.
But the sickness is still pretty, traumatizing to everyone involved. Like, Frodo has not had to go through... No, wait, he has been having to go through this even in the West, hasn't he?
It's been easier in the West, I
Right.
think.
It's supposed to have been.
And it's gotten worse now that he's left the West.
Yeah.
So he makes it through the first bout of sickness.
Mm-hmm.
Relatively okay.
Mm.
And then they go back to Bag End with Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here it should be noted that Gala has a very close relationship with Sam's son, Fro, named after Frodo,
Yes.
which is kind of weird. But they fully expect, like all the adults fully expect they will
That's
get
something
married.
like parents do, though,
when they grow up.
when they just talk about their kids are going to marry other people's kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like that's less about the relationship between Fro and Gala and more about just the way hobbits operate, where they're like, oh, those two are totally going to hook up.
Even Frodo is like, well, this bag end inheritance thing is only going to be one generation, it looks like.
Well, I actually wanted to mention that because I was resting on that part, and it's really kind of funny, like, because I do think you're right about the whole, like, this is the way hobbits operate thing. And Sam is, of course, the epitome of the true hobbit. And such an admirable hobbit as he is. He is, like, says something about, like, You don't need a bit of foretelling to know that, Mr. Frodo, but we pretend not to. They think it's a big secret they play at being married. I know it's not quite proper and all, being of such different types. And this is where they address class difference, which they never address in Lord of the Rings, despite it being so obvious that there is class difference, right?
There is when they talk about between Sam and Frodo. That's always been a thing between them where Sam is supposed to serve Frodo because Frodo's of a high-class family, and Frodo's always been, Sam, that doesn't matter, we're just friends.
Okay, good point. They do address it, but it's very kind of, like, abstract in the sense that they never say, like, explicitly there's this. I feel, is that true?
I feel like this exchange is a lot more pointed than it ever was in the books.
Yes,
because,
and so...
I think anything that anybody else has written is more pointed than anything from
Tolkien's wrote. And so it goes on. Frodo rolled his eyes. They both look like hobbits to me, where he's like, stop it with this class nonsense. And Sam's like, you know what I mean. Yes, I do. I'm choosing not to acknowledge it. I had hoped that this nonsense would have ended with the Third Age. You are my heir and my dearest friend, Sam. I will not make a serious guess as to whether or not Gala will marry your son. They are far too young to think about such things. But I will tell you that I would consider such a match not only acceptable, but the most delightful one I could conjure in my imagination. Sam could think of no answer. They went inside to supper. And it's kind of a sweet moment, but it's just like actually addressing that very straightforward.
And they're a little bit better than most parents that do that sort of thing where they didn't directly tease the kids all the time about it.
Right.
Totally.
That's definitely a step up,
Yes.
I like that Frodo's priority in this was, like, to address the class difference. Like, he mentions offhandedly, like, they're way too young, like, what are you doing? But his main point is, like, why do you care about this class thing? Like, I don't. Of course, it is his privilege not to care because he is of the higher class, but...
Now, Frodo's been needing to grapple with, like, how much do I engage with life here? Do I even want to or whatever? But he is growing closer to Gala. And he decides to move back into Lily's old house with her.
After some cajoling, I think.
After some cajoling. Yeah, she overhears at one point, like, kind of discussion about, like, oh, what are you going to do?
And at one point they have a New Year's equivalent party in that area where all the kids fall asleep, and instead of going back, they all... spend the night in Lily's old house.
That's right, and that's kind of what
sets it off.
Sets it off. He decides to move back in with Gala. She's staying there. And they end up also reopening the school that Gala was intending
While
to...
they're in Bag End, Frodo started teaching some of the neighborhood kids.
Yes.
Right. And I liked this emphasis of Frodo as being kind of bookish, because I feel like that's absolutely who the character is.
Yeah.
It's just not something that gets emphasized in the book because he's dragging himself across the wilderness on a, like, horrible quest, and he's, like, not, allowed to do his own thing.
Yeah, especially
super suited for, but he does it anyway.
Especially old Frodo that's written the Red Book.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this is the Frodo that would exist now, but the Frodo that was introduced before his quest was, like, the wild hobbit who just wanted to, like, leave and go on adventures, right?
Yeah, but also...
But this is definitely the Frodo who's been through things and seen things. Like, I definitely think this is the contemporary Frodo of our time.
I like how you phrased that, Tori.
Me too.
I think this is a Frodo for today's generation.
Vote Frodo.
So the prospect of moving into her mother's old house makes Gala realize that she's actually going to leave Brandy Hall for the first time in her life and leave Mary. And she kind of grapples with that in a very sweet way and kind of tells him,
it's
that
not
she
that
loves
I don't love you,
him. Yeah. And it's very, very sweet.
And Mary takes it very well. He's like, look,
Yes.
I consider you my own daughter. Like, I love you no matter where you are. You're welcome back at Brandy Hall anytime. But, like, do what's good for you.
And also, just because you move out doesn't mean you can't come and see me and visit whenever.
Right.
And Mary tells Frodo, I have relinquished my jewel, Frodo. Are you ready to relinquish yours? Which means, can you put the jewels you've brought aside and, like, really try and stay here and grapple with your issues?
Because it seems the use of the Evan Star or whatever is kind of partially contributing to his detachment.
Well, it's holding on to the Nenya, which he admits doesn't actually have any magic power, but keeps with him anyways.
Actually, like, in that same moment, explicitly, it's stated, like, he grabs the jewel and grasps it tightly, feeling the terrible, frightening grief fade slowly away as he grasps the jewel. And it's the grief of his wife. He says, "She was my wife. I'm supposed to feel this." And so it's sort of like this idea of when he takes the jewel, he loses his grief, but he feels a sense of how he's supposed to feel in this mortal world.
He finds the beauty in feeling.
Yes.
For the first time in a long time.
And backing up just a moment, Dom, you were saying Frodo starts teaching some neighborhood kids while he's still staying at Bag End.
Yeah, first starts teaching continuing Gala's lesson, then starts teaching all of Sam's kids, then some of the neighborhood kids, then the word spreads, then some people come from further afield to come to a Bag End to learn.
And a lot of them are a little bit wary about it until they get the kids get an assignment to talk about what their family members did in the Battle of the Shire or whatever, and then everybody's like happy with it.
They read for on a Parent Observance Day or whatever.
Yeah. That was adorable. Like we even get another scene of like, you know, tavern gossip about like, I don't know about all this book learning and putting ideas into their heads, but at least on the part of some hobbits. Right. But then writing about their family.
But they mentioned like
heroics.
Some of the newer parents really want their kids to learn so they can write stuff down about what happened.
It implies a change in Hobbit culture, especially with talking about the heroics of hobbits, which is so a not Hobbit thing to have heroics, right?
And just being more aware of their place in the world has made them more concerned with actually learning.
Just being aware of a world that is not just hobbits.
Yes.
Yeah. And isn't there a comment about like to hear the family stories that are related by these kids for their assignment? It sounds like every single hobbit like heroically like spat at Sharky's rogues and like, you know, did something really awesome in the battle.
This is the tale of every stub toe.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. This is what Lily was trying to avoid.
Yeah.
But these were not the stories that like, you know, Bilbo's generation would have wanted to hear at all. They would have been horrified. So it's interesting that they're bringing it forward and they're like, these are cool stories.
Yeah, well, everyone lived through it. You know, it wasn't that long ago.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but now it's real.
The world broke into the Shire, so they can't ignore it anymore. So it's kind of changed the culture. Yeah.
And I love how the author really, like, our dear friend Fernwithy really emphasizes that.
And so the school's going well and everything, but Frodo has the next round of illness, and
he sees it's upcoming on his G calendar.
Yeah, and there's this weird subplot where like Lily hides the jewel.
Lily sleepwalks
while sleepwalking.
Yes,
yeah,
because she's always had a sleepwalking issue, and subconsciously she kind of resents the jewel or like
because
something
makes her father distant.
Right.
Yes. And now, did they mention I feel like the author established her sleepwalking issue before, but I don't know how far previously it was to this moment.
It was in the beginning of the fic.
They established it.
Oh, they established it early on.
Yeah, they did.
It's kind of a way for her to act in a way that provides some conflict without actually having her need to make a decision that, you know, provides the conflict.
She falls asleep and gets to act out her id, but not take responsibility for it.
Because it's a kid that wants to be a good kid that wouldn't consciously wouldn't consciously cause any conflict that'd be interesting in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird though because it's like if she's a kid, you know, younger than 12. If she's 12 in Hobbit years, she's younger than 12 in our human conception. Whatever, she's a young kid. Yeah, whatever. I'm gonna stop fixating on that. My point is that like if she did something really like, you know, arbitrary, crazy, it wouldn't be that weird because kids do that stuff. But they have to make it sleepwalking. This is kind of my only problem is they have to make it sleepwalking so that has no like culpability, so that she's kind of perfect.
Yeah,
that's my only issue with it.
I'm not sure that was the purpose exactly. It seemed more like the other way to introduce more attention because like then they were looking for the stone and
even she doesn't know where it is.
And even the kid didn't know. And that provided the tension to the point where she guessed where it was and went out to find it in the snow, broke through some ice that covered a pond and ripped it out of the ice-covered mud. It was also kind of like a little redemption thing where she ended up like tearing up her hands.
She did, but what was her redemption for if she did it while sleepwalking? And Like, that's my only issue, that, like, and furthermore, it's like...
I think it was implied it was a redemption for having the impulse in the first
Yeah,
place.
here's the conversation. Sam's there, and when she comes back in, and, you know, she manages to get the jewel back, she turned to Sam, who hadn't spoken to her since she'd gone outside, and said, "I wasn't lying. But you weren't quite telling the truth either, were you now, Miss Gala?" She shook her head. "I thought if he didn't have it, he'd forget about going west again. I didn't mean to steal it, but I didn't want him to have it anymore either. Your dad's got a sickness, Gala. It doesn't go away for the wishing." And I feel like that's kind of an important point here. It's just like Frodo's trauma is real. Frodo's physical, sicknesses are real. And he's not, he may have been kind of irresponsible in coming back, but he's not promising to stay, partially because he just is not sure whether he can.
And that's something Gala's head understands, but not
emotional.
Not the unconscious.
But actually, that's specifically my point, is that she acknowledges the wish for him to stay and all of that, and apologizes for it and takes responsibility for it. So why could she have not done this task well awake? And it's a minor thing. I just feel like, as a kid...
I just think it's a representation of conflict within Gala themselves,
And perhaps. I just feel like it maybe could have been more poignant if she'd done it very deliberately, because it would have shown, how much she really wanted her parent to be there, as opposed to being, infinitely self-sacrificing.
I think
because if she's doing it only as a sleepwalker, it's she is this most infinitely self-sacrificing person.
I don't think it's read like that, even
you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. It could have been written where she... I would have believed it if they wrote it where she took it deliberately and threw it someplace.
The way I feel it... I feel it was written this way because her taking the jewel and getting rid of it for the day when Frodo really needs it, precipitates the plot. It pushes it forward because... And we can talk about that in a minute. But... I can't see her remaining in character and watching him suffer without telling somebody immediately where the jewel is.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So I think it was really to service the plot more than anything.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Very good point.
In the aftermath of this, it hit Frodo really badly.
Frodo had a bad time.
It was, real bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a conversation. They're, traveling on the way. Are they heading back to the Grey Havens at this?
He takes off immediately. He's like, I can't handle this.
Yeah. Frodo has been making preparations before the sickness hit, and the worst case scenario that he has to bail right after.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he has somebody covering his lessons. He has all his stuff packed up, ready to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Gala, they have a conversation on the way, and it's again very heartfelt.
And they agree that Frodo and Gala should go alone in order to have some more alone time before Frodo leaves permanently.
That's right. And, she still has the little kid emotional reaction where she's like, you went through it twice already. You went through both of them. Can't you just, keep doing that every year?
Here's the quote.
Yeah.
"But you bore it twice already." Frodo looked away from her. "Gala, I do not have a choice. The sickness isn't going away, as I had hoped it would. If I don't leave, what? What will happen?" She glared at him for a long moment, eyes burning, then collapsed, weeping, into his arms. "Oh, Daddy, it hurts so much. I only just found out who I am. How can I go back?" "Why should you?" He petted her hair and kissed the crown of her head. "Darling, I'll always be with you in your heart when you need me. I don't want you in my heart. I want you at the dinner table." And that's the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's... Yeah. I feel like it was a good... It was an ending that rang true to the source material, to have it be that he has to leave.
Actually, wait.
Dom, you were saying it's kind of weird for someone to come back from the West at all, and they would have been very un-Tolkien. It would have been even less so for to be I'm sick and corrupted,
did you not read the last few paragraphs?
He stays.
Wait a minute. Did I misread that?
I read it several times to get the gist of it, because at first I did think he left, but he does stay.
He keeps Arwen's jewel, sends the ring back, and stays.
Yeah, 6 paragraphs after the one I just read, they talk about.
Oh, dang. I missed that part. The quote The quote when he's saying, like, and perhaps far in the future when you are all grown up and married and I am old and tired, I will come back here. I was reading that as, like, coming back to Middle Earth again.
I read it, that's exactly the same way. That's exactly the same way I read it the first time. I actually read it 2 more times in order to make sure. And it was on the second read-through that I was like, oh, no, wait. And I actually parsed it on the last one. Because I think your anticipation wants you to think that he does go back. I think it would make the most sense. Like, you always get the sense that his stay is temporary, that he can't be here, that it hurts him too much to be here, and that it's not realistic. So, it is weird to me. He decides to stay. Mm-hmm. And yes, what he says is that perhaps when you are old and married, or something like, not old, but like grown and married.
And I am older, right?
He's older. Tired. When he's like, when eventually you get married, I will go back to the West. And he's giving up a lot to do that. But there's not a lot of precedent set for why he would do that. So I actually had to read it a couple times to get that same meaning myself.
Okay, you are totally right. Somehow I just
he does
the
say
key words here.
I
totally best get home, which is the key phrase in that little section. And if you're skimming, you can miss it really, really easily. But he decides to stay with her.
Yeah, last paragraph is they turned east together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He sends Nenia back. He stays behind, and she does say, "Oh, I wish it didn't hurt you so." But he says, "Not all wishes can come true, but perhaps a few of them can." And okay, so never mind. He stays.
He does.
He loves his kid, you know.
I'm glad we talked about this, Amanda.
It's time we had this talk.
Yeah. No, seriously, though, I did not get it the first time. But there were those little bits that didn't make sense. Like...
It was a bit of an about face.
Yeah.
So...
It happened very rapidly, I would say.
But at this point, I think they provided enough evidence for both ways where they could have gone either direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really expected him to go back to the West. And also the way the ending was written, like, it was so somber.
It's very somber.
You kind of felt like he was.
Well, he's decided to suffer for several decades.
Right.
Of course. Of course. But, like, the idea is that he's decided to suffer because the sacrifice that he's making produces a greater joy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you would think that would have more joyous tone. But it does not. And so the idea of staying with his child produces a somber effect.
I don't think it's...
That is kind of counterintuitive to me.
I didn't feel like it was so somber for me.
No, you
anyway.
didn't? Okay.
No. Like, he said, not all wishes come true, but perhaps a few of them can. And that's his last line. Home. Yeah.
Well, the way that it shook out is like they had to break somebody's heart, and he just kind of decided that it would be his own instead of his daughter's.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't his heart so much.
Not literally, but there had to be some sort of sacrifice.
Right.
A heavy sacrifice either way.
I felt like maybe at the end the tone could have been more, I don't know, heroically celebratory rather than like somber and like, I guess I have to do this because I love my daughter.
I guess
you know what I mean.
It's pretty consistent with Frodo. He's a pretty somber dude.
But it's like I don't think it's I had to do this. I think Frodo wanted to do it.
Of course he did, but I just feel like the tone isn't consistent with that feeling. Do you understand?
If there had been a paragraph in there where it shows him thinking to himself, like, okay, that was hard, but already my pain is subsiding.
Yes.
I think I can do this.
Yes.
2 days a year. Like, having a little bit more of a transition, I think would have helped.
If there had been any moment in this where his love for his daughter made him feel something beautiful and positive.
They kind of sprinkled that in throughout the whole thing, though.
Yeah, it's there. It's just the author's trying to be subtle and showing rather than telling, I think.
Mm-hmm.
My point is more to the effect of there is so much pain in this, and his choice to remain with his daughter, I feel, comes as unexpected because his moments with his daughter are rarely joyful. They're often rife with his own pain. Mm. So I feel like it would make way more sense for his pain to drive him away than for him to seek joy with his daughter. If there had been more established joy with his daughter, like just purely that, like, I love her and I'm with her, I feel like it would have come together better. That's my opinion.
I saw some joy in his interactions with his daughters.
Yeah.
There's some.
I didn't really. You kind of talked like there wasn't really any, or not enough to justify.
I feel
this.
like no. That's not exactly what I mean. I mean just that the whole tone is mostly somber. Like his pain kind of overtakes the rare moments of joy. Is kind of what I'm trying to say. Does
Well,
that,
I
does
think
that ring for you guys, or I don't know. Maybe you all feel different.
I think that's a difference in impressions from reading. But I think we can all agree that it would have been more clearly celebratory at the end if a couple of giant eagles had swept down and picked them up and carried them back to Hobbiton.
They need some
Obviously.
sort of Eucharistic moment.
Exactly. To really get into that Tolkien.
Right.
Somebody shouts, "The eagles are coming!" Just off in the distance, we're like, "Who's that guy?"
They're like, why? Nobody asked them.
Now, Dom, you commented when we were just getting ready to start that we stumbled into reading two Fernwithy stories that are centered around father-daughter relationships.
Yeah, I think that's just kind of unfortunate in our fanfic choice.
I mean, yeah, I didn't know that was the emphasis of this fanfic when I chose it.
It could be a theme that Fernwithy likes to explore, which is good.
It's
Well-
hard to tell because like two
Yeah.
examples aren't the sample size.
I feel like at this point we're committed and we need to do a third one at some point.
And I have to be here.
Yeah,
Sure. And it'll be Harry Potter because Fernwithy did a lot of Harry Potter. Or does.
Sounds great.
I will say that Fernwithy's explorations of father-daughter relationships are pretty poignant and nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell with these two examples of their writing that we've seen so far, solid writer, very nuanced, just generally really good at remembering who characters are and exploring that further, which is really nice.
I also appreciate what they have to say about it.
Yeah. And in both cases, I mean, they're very, very different relationships. We don't have a scene here of, Gala murdering Frodo's friends and, like, leaving everything that he built burning around him. And
Which is too bad, really.
I watched a man burn.
vowing the destruction of all of his works, Maybe in the sequel.
They do mention at the end that there is a story about Gala's mother.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't not read that. It's just that I have other things higher in my priority list as someone who chooses readings for a fanfiction podcast.
Yeah, there's a literal list.
Right.
I would vote for a Fernwithy Harry Potter.
Well, that's
for sure.
if we do a third Fernwithy, and like I said, I feel like we have to now. Then it's definitely going to be Harry Potter. It's kind of having glanced at Fernwithy's like bibliography. It's kind of weird that we chose two non-Harry Potter ones. I feel like. I mean, she's been involved in a lot of things. I just think she's most well known for Harry Potter, probably because Harry Potter has the biggest fan fiction fandom like ever.
Well, like if that's the biggest selection of Fernwithy's work, we should definitely explore more. I'm not just saying that because all our Harry Potter episodes are the most downloaded and watched.
Why do people like Harry
Save
Potter
the best
so
for
much?
last.
I mean, I
I
love
hate
Harry Potter. It's great.
I did buy a
Harry
Hufflepuff
Potter's
shirt
the worst.
at the 9 3/4 store at King's Cross Station.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
We'll do another Harry Potter at some point. Yeah.
Very
And
soon,
Fernwithy.
immediately, almost like right now. We're doing it right now, actually.
All
Let's
right,
talk about Harry Potter.
So how about Harry
Oh
Potter?
God, I'm not prepared.
I like Harry
Yeah, you
and
are.
his Potter.
Figure it out.
How about those father-daughter relationships in Harry Potter? Like,
Ginny and her dad.
Does Hermione have a
Arthur?
dad?
Yeah, but he's not really in it.
I think they're in the same room at one point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dumbledore's a father figure.
daughter
Does he
figure?
have a daughter?
He's a father figure to
To which daughter? Pick a daughter. Any daughter.
Fox? Is Fox a girl?
McGonagall.
I would read that fanfic too.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I feel like McGonagall should have done more cool stuff in the course of those 7 books,
Agreed.
Like,
She doesn't need glory, okay?
She's just doing all those essential background things being a cat,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I just felt like she should have been a cat more often.
She's just badass on the DL, that's all.
Yeah. Think of how many baddies she scratched with them cat claws, though.
Seriously. She was on recon missions, we just didn't know.
I want to read that comic book. Like McGonagall Secret Service or something. Just like the new Pennyworth TV series that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
If Alfred turned into a cat, I would buy that.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be too much, I think. That's too much good stuff in one thing.
Gotta slow down.
Something Sabrina the Teenage Witch. No? Salem?
Salem is a gray cat.
Salem is a wizard turned into a cat, right?
Yeah, some ancient warlock dude did a bunch of crimes, got catted. End of story.
Remained very sarcastic.
Yeah.
Got turned
Well, he's
into
a little bitter
Yeah.
about getting all that cat.
Got turned into a very bad puppet.
All right. New fanfic pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Harry Potter, Sailor Moon crossover with all talking cats.
Oh.
My
excellent.
brain
Oh
just
my God.
exploded.
That's insanely good. Wow.
Are there any other magic using talking cats from magic using franchises that we can throw in there?
I'm guessing more than we think.
So many.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
Kiki's Delivery
Kiki's Delivery
Service.
Service.
Done. Accepted.
I'm sorry, does Madoka Magica...
Not a cat.
Not a cat.
Oh,
Refused.
that's so close.
No.
Also, I don't want him there.
But it would be insane.
Denied.
No, I don't want.
What is
Kiki in
it? What is
same
the line
universe
like?
As anything else?
Making a contract. So do you want to make a...
Do you want to make? No.
Oh, there's Felix as well from the 30s. And they had a
Felix
remake
the
in the 90s.
cat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Or
Use magic and talking.
alternately,
Yeah, but,
Chris the cat.
but wait, Felix is anthropomorphic though. Like he's not
Yeah.
a cat.
Oh, we're
But that's
picky
like
now,
my cat.
aren't we?
Fritz the cat, though. Literally, like Fritz the cat. Let's bring that one
Fritz
in
the
there.
cat also. I feel like this is a different fanfic here with Felix and Fritz.
Is Garfield a
There's a
warlock?
lot more boobs, I gotta say it.
All right, we'll throw them in their own. All right, they're over there.
I'll accept Garfield from the life where he was Pandora's
That
cat.
was about to...
Oh,
And
no,
Hobbs.
yeah.
Hobbs
Actually,
from Calvin and
Hobbs
Hobbes.
cat. But this
Hobbs
all
is
takes place
anthropomorphic.
in the
I know,
alternate
you should
universe.
hang out with Felix.
Okay,
in
the
which
Felix one.
Garfield is like dead and everybody else is past. You know that alternate universe actual canon of Garfield.
Garfield in the Nine Lives book.
You know that's like
Yeah, that's
actually
what we were just talking
true?
about, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Wait, there's a Garfield story that doesn't involve him talking about Mondays.
There's
with
an
lasagna.
actual canon that like
Nothing else.
Garfield's been alive for centuries and like everyone he knows is actually he's like a ghost.
He gets reincarnated.
Reincarnated because he has 9 lives.
But
'cause he's a
everybody,
cat.
like John and Odie and everyone are just like figments of his imagination.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's the canon.
Is that the ninth life? I don't remember how that book ends.
No,
pretty
it's not.
trippy.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one where it's like a Halloween strip where like it's
Oh, yeah, that's
confirmed that
super
he's
creepy.
actually like died and that he's just like a ghost in a house imagining John and Odie for like the entire Garfield comic strip.
Have you ever seen the Garfield comic strip where they just remove Garfield and it's just John
Oh
talking to
yeah,
himself?
no, I love that.
Garfield
That
minus
came out when I was
Garfield.
like a senior in high school, and I was so about it.
My favorite ones are like where you said something that's just two panels of nothing.
It's most essential. So,
Best digression ever,
Proposition.
by the way.
Lord of the Rings minus Frodo.
I'm not sure that works in the same way.
So
Are you sure?
Sauron takes over everything?
No. It works exactly the same way. There's just no Frodo.
Frodo's a figment of Sam's imagination.
Yeah, something like that.
I will
We can make it
accept.
work.
I will accept.
I can accept
Salem.
Just
Gollum's
first you have to
imagination.
think
Yeah, Gollum.
of Lord of the Rings. Yeah, first you have to think of Lord of the Rings as a strip comic, and then you can convert it.
Yeah, you're getting too excited and smacking your
I
mic.
know. I'm
off.
sorry.
Tori, the closest I'll take there is Sabrina minus Salem, where just magic enacts a price on your sanity.
Or Salem minus Sabrina.
That makes less sense.
Do you remember that episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch where she gets addicted to pancakes like it's heroin?
No.
Do you remember the one where the guy
Public surface?
like does
service
some
message.
like weird body mods on her body on the computer, and she's like stuck with super high hair and huge boobs?
What?
That one was insane.
Okay.
Well, we just jumped the shark, so...
Goodbye.
Well, look, we were delivering the content listeners crave by talking about Harry Potter,
Right.
and then things got out of hand. So let's back up to the fanfic. We got to close this out.
Oh, I thought we were going to back up to our all-encompassing cat fanfic
We gotta start writing it right now.
right now.
I think we might need a script
Right
for
now.
our next episode. Oh my!
I did it. I'm not sorry. I am sorry.
It's okay, CJ. I forgive you.
Any complaints about the Jewel of Brandy Hall that have not yet come up?
Other than my kind of lack of belief in it as just a thing. It's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to be honest, I feel like I complained more about it in the actual podcast than I actually felt. Like, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Like, maybe Gallagher had a more interesting characterization, but I'm not sure that was necessary.
It's like, it's one of those stories where she's, I'm not going to say it's perfunctory, but like she's not giving more time for it to breathe than she needs to.
Does Gala have an arc in this?
Does Gala have an arc? Gala
kind of ends in the same place as start, right?
Yeah.
It's
really
Frodo who has the arc.
She's the catalyst, really, for Frodo's arc,
I think that's maybe the major complaint is, like, I feel like she could have had more, but she is also a kid.
Yeah. Right. Her kidness is, like, I guess a 12-year-old or a Hobbit equivalent 12-year-old could have a, like, big character-changing thing, but, you know.
Yeah, like a Hobbit 12-year-old is like, what, like an 8-year-old or 7-year-old?
Well, we don't know.
But this is not a coming-of-age story, so...
No, it's not. Yeah, I could imagine a follow-up coming-of-age story of some kind, but...
Yeah. I kind of liked that it dodged that. It was just about... They had one story they wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Her coming-of-age story could easily be the day her father leaves for good.
Totally, yeah. Though I do feel like the author paid a lot of attention to her character without, like, getting a lot of places with her development, I suppose. Though a lot of it had to do with her emotions around her father, and those were well done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In terms of things to praise, I'd say my favorite thing about the fanfic is just the parts where it's so Hobbity. Just always, I enjoyed the, like, gossip in the tavern. Gossip. I enjoyed the, like, all the hobbits getting really into their family stories being, like, performed by their kids on, like, stage. All those kinds of, like, really Hobbity, folksy, like, small townness stuff. I mean, maybe I'm just Hobbit starved and I like having more hobbits in general.
It was fun. It was true to the source material. Yeah. It was nice.
I appreciate it was something easy to read that had a Lord of the Rings flavor to it.
Yeah.
Like the writing style was vaguely reminiscent of, but not too much because then it would have been bitch to read.
Reading 20,000 words of writing in the style of They Say of the Elves would have been a bit much.
That would have been a bit much.
Quite,
a bit overflowing,
that's a good point. And then the characters became kind of, I don't know, super relatable in a certain sense. Like, I felt like I related less to Sam and Merry and Pippin because they were more minor than I did in the source. But Frodo and especially Gala just came out so much.
Well, you know what? Also, Tori, you mentioning that makes me want to say that I really like that that Sam and Merry and Pippin are all different characters with different perspectives and different attitudes towards Frodo. Because it would have been so easy to write them as, like, Frodo's old friends as a group.
Totally,
and they're really not. Like, Merry is not Pippin in this.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sam is not Merry. Like, they all have very different places they're coming from in their relationships with each other and with Frodo and with Gala.
Absolutely.
And, like,
Absolutely,
it's... there was clear attention paid there, and it came through in the scenes that those other characters were in, and I thought it was really good.
It's a gift Fernwithy has, really, that she, I assume, really studies character.
That's my understanding, yes.
And then, you know, takes it in new places, but really stays true to who that person is supposed to be, so...
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I just said was, like, that those characters weren't as relatable as maybe the word I used, but I think more they weren't as focused on. They actually are very relatable. If you pause and take a second to consider each character's perspective, they're all fully developed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of their writing. Like, Fernwithy can really go with any character and make that character, like, as we saw with Darth Vader being a prominent character, make that character super empathetic. And it's all done very well here.
If we read something Fernwithy writes about Harry Potter, am I going to like Draco? Is that going to happen? Can you promise me that won't happen, Amato?
I don't know anything about Harry Potter output. I can promise nothing.
I'm not sure we can risk that then. I don't know.
I totally think Fernwithy can make that happen.
Choose carefully, Amato.
Do you believe that Fernwithy could write a Harry Potter story and make us distinguish between Crabbe and Goyle? Or is that beyond?
Absolutely.
If anyone could do that, it would be Fernwithy.
Somebody should.
Well, speaking of Fernwithy writing, Fernwithy's got a Patreon. It's Fernwithy, all together. She's got 12 patrons.
Patrons.
I'm sure she could use more. So, out of all of the writers, she's one of the ones who is still doing writing online and, has somewhere to support her. So if you are moved to do so, go do that. I'm not going to because I'm poor and cheap. Mm-hmm. And that's my story.
Because
this is our contribution.
Yeah, that's true. Fernwithy has become one of my favorite authors in the 2 fanfics we've read, though. Like, I have mad respect for her. Mm-hmm. So
great.
I'll be breaking down the door if you do a Fernwithy without me. I'm not gonna lie. Swing in my Catwoman suit.
You're gonna start your own rival podcast.
I knew you had a Catwoman suit. I just knew it.
Is that obvious?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're not going to make it all Fernwithy all the time, but we'll get back to her at some point just because of momentum now.
Which is really good.
Mm-hmm. As for next time, we are doing some officially published fan fiction. I guess it's fan fiction. It is Tropical Storm by Melissa Good. And it is a Xena Uber fanfic, which is to say, it's not Xena, but it's not Xena.
So it's like a super German fanfic? It's Uber?
It is a Uber fanfic. No, it's just what the genre is called. It's AU. It's an alternate universe. It might actually be the first AU fanfic we've read at all, because usually I don't read those. We'll see what we have to say about it. At least some things. You can find the link to that one at bit.ly/rfrstorm. As for this was episode 36 of Retro Fanfic Retrospective, The Jewel of Brandy Hall by Fernwithy. You can find a link there at bit.ly/rfrjewel, all lowercase and all that kind of thing. The intro song is The Weekly Fare off of the album Poppy's Incredible Adventure by Komiku. The outro song is Run Against the Universe from the same album. You can find this album and other works by Komiku at loyaltyfreakmusic.com. You can find our website at retrofanficretrospective.podbean.com or bit.ly/retrofanfic. If you have comments, questions, or thoughts about the episode, you can contact us on Twitter at retrofanfic, or send us an email at retrofanficretrospective@gmail.com. You can also leave comments or reviews on Apple Podcasts or the podcasty service of your choice. I'm Amato.
I'm Tori.
I'm Dom.
And I'm CJ.
We're just 4 Middle-earth life forms trying to be nice to each other. Until next time, take care. And in the aftermath of this,
You've had too much not Calidus.
I've had like nothing. But I just can't talk.
It's just evidence that you should drink more.
Right, to have that like loosened tongue that I hear so much about.
Yeah, that's what I do.